code. So here I have MySQL running. And let's say I just want to first select star. Oh no, rather not. Let's not select star, but rather let's try to retrieve. Let's try to retrieve author name, title. Oops, one moment. Select author name, title, price from book. Right? We still get what we expected from before. If we try to get the sum of prices, if we try to execute this, we will actually get an error. So SQL, when it sees an aggregation like this, right? So the sum aggregation, it expects this particular aggregation to come with a group by expression, right? So here it tells us that in aggregated query without group by, expression 1 of select list contains non-aggregated columns, such as the author name. This is incompatible with SQL mode equals only full group by. So essentially, MySQL is expecting that when you're applying a particular aggregation, it has to come with a group by statement, right? Otherwise, it expects that the values for the unaggregated columns, such as author name and title, have to be they have to be singular, but that's not the case. So to prevent that from happening, right, we can transform our window function, or rather our aggregation function, into a window function by providing this over statement, right? So what it will do now is it will still calculate the sum of the prices over the entire result set, right? So if we execute this piece of code, now we get a new column, right, where we still maintain all of our rows from previous, right? So Jeffrey A. Hoffer, Modern Database Management, 4950, Stieg Larsson, The Girl with Dragon Tattoo, 545, right? But beside it, right, we get actually the sum of the prices over the entire result set, right? And now they're found in their own row. All right. So this is because, again, an empty over clause will treat the entire result set as a single partition. All right. And this talk about partitions we'll discuss in the next few slides. But first, we know that a function, window function column can also be provided with an alias, so we can call it total price instead. Okay. So here, now that we've defined a window function, we can actually make use of that particular window function column to calculate, let's say, things such as the percentage of every book from the total price, right? So in this particular statement, we use our window function, use that as a denominator, so that, or we can use it in a quotient so that we can divide the price by the total price over the entire result set, so that we can get the percentage of one particular book and its contribution to the total price of the entire table. So for example, Jeffrey Hoffer's Modern Database Management, it accounts for around 5% of the total price of this particular table, right? And we can use window functions to be able to calculate that. Right. So now here we have a discussion about the partitions that I've been mentioning from before, right? So what partitions do, you can essentially sort of provide a grouping within the window functions, right? So the over clause can partition the rows, let's say by an author, right? If we specify that's the partitioning, so that we can produce the sum of prices per author, right? So the syntax of that, we still make use of the aggregation function followed by the over clause, And within the over clause, we have to specify the following keywords: partition by, and then we provide a column name, but that is often non-aggregatable, such as author name, right? So it is very similar in the sense that when we specify a group by statement, right, uh, we can we can provide a grouping for our aggregation. That's very similar in this particular situation where we provide a partitioning over that particular window. So for example, an illustration of this, let's say we wanted to take the sum of the prices, the total sum of the prices, right? But we have to group it by the author name. So as you can see here, the select statement is as follows: select author name, total price, author name, title, and price, followed by the sum of price over partition by author name, and then we just provide an alias to it called total price per author from book. Okay, so what does that do? Now you'll see here we have different values in the total price per author column, right? Those values actually correspond to the partitioning that we provided. So if you take a look at, let's say, J.R.R. Martin's books, right? So all of the A Song of Fire and Ice books, if we take the sum of these 900, 900, 900, 900, and then 3 more 900s, that all adds up to 6,300, right? As you see here, the sum, right? The sum function takes the sum of the price column, but now just chooses in particular the author name, right? Group it by author name, so we get 63. Next, let's say we have Tolkien's books, right? So all of the Lord of the Rings books. If we sum those up, 600 plus 600 plus 600, that now refers to the 1,800 that we see here, right? Rodriguez, if we sum them up, that refers to the 775 that we can see here, right? So that's how we can make use of partitions, so that when you're applying this particular summing or another kind of aggregation to these aggregatable columns such as price, right, you can actually specify a partitioning, right? How are these particular aggregation columns going to be divided? Okay. Similarly, we can make use of that particular calculation so that we can calculate the percentage of a book price from total price by author. Okay, the last kind of window function that we will be talking about is a special kind of function which is called a row number function, and we can use this particular row number function to essentially rank rows in our result set. So it can be used in tandem with window functions to rank rows within partitions. Okay, so the syntax for making use of row number is as follows. So we can select several number columns followed by this particular column which is called row number, and then we provide any partitions to it, such as, so over partitioned by a column, right? Column called G1, and we can order it by G1 and so on and so forth from table. So the illustration of this can be found right here. So let's say we want to number the books per author as they appear in the table. Okay, so you will see here, if you do select author name, title, price, followed by row number over the partition by author name as row number from books, we can essentially number every book as they appear in the result set, right? So for J.R.R. Martin's books, right, A Game of Thrones is row number 1, A Storm of Swords is row number 2, Clash of Kings is row number 3, etc. And if we go to Tolkien, right, we notice that we don't actually continue the numbering from J.R.R. Martin's books, right? We always revert back to 1. So for example here, Fellowship of the Ring is 1, Two Towers is 2, Return of the King is 3. Let's demonstrate it in SQL. Okay, so in this particular example, let's say we don't want to actually we don't want to partition, right, the book So, or rather, we don't want to partition the table by the author. So if we just apply this row number non-aggregation window function, right? And if we execute this piece of code on SQL, you'll notice that we just number everything as normal. So whatever appears first in the table will get numbered accordingly. So Hoffer's modern database management is row number 1. Tolkien's fellowship tutoring is row number 6, and so on and so forth, right? So it just essentially counts the current place of the of these particular tables, or rather of this particular rows of data in this particular table, right? However, if we provide a partitioning, right, let's say partition by author name, now if we copy this piece of code and we paste it, the row numbering will reset for every author in the table, right? So if we just look inside the window of GRR Martin, we're numbering it from 1 to 7. And then we go to a next table, so a next window rather, that includes Hoffer, right? The number now resets to 1. And we go to another window, which refers to Tolkien, right? We reset to number 1 and we go up to 3. Then we reset for Rodrigo Rodriguez, right? And again, we reset to 1 and we go up to 4. And Stieg Larsson, right? That's another window. We reset to 1. So that's how we can essentially tell SQL how we want to apply that row numbering. And we can use it as ranking.